Real quick, my name is Chris Prinzivalli. I'm a independent freelance engineer here in New York City. I've got a BS in communications. I've got an MS in electrical engineering. I have 20-something gold and platinum records. I've got 13 Emmys and 2 Grammy Awards. I do a variety of events here in New York, and each of my clients has something different from me. To some people, I am a front of house mixer. To some people, I'm a monitor mixer. To some people, I'm a broadcast mixer. I get bored, and I hope you guys do too, because to run the gamut of different things is, I think, pretty important. I operate here at CDO Productions, CDO Design and Engineering, and some of the shows I do are the Video Music Awards. I do the NBA All-Star Game. I do WrestleMania and the WWE Hall of Fame Awards. I do the Grammy Awards and Macy's Fireworks. I do different things for each of these clients. Like I said, to the VMAs, I'm a monitor mixer. To Macy's 4th of July, I'm a sound designer and front of house mixer. For the Grammy Awards, I mix them when they're in New York. I'm not the LA guys. For WrestleMania, I'm the front of house mixer. We all do a bunch of different things, and that's fun. There's a reason I'm telling you this, though. One of the shows that I do is a puppet show here in New York City that you may recognize, called Sesame Street. I've been at Sesame Street for about 12 years now, and it runs the gamut of every discipline of audio there is, from front of house mixing to dialogue mixing to production mixing, music mixing, and it's all live. They very rarely do edits. They very rarely go back and do other takes. We go live to tape, and my mix is what you hear on TV. We're going to keep this casual, guys. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. If you have any questions along the way, just fire away. But I'm going to go through the design of the show. I'm going to go through all the technology that we use, why we use it, and how it's implemented. Like I said, Sesame pulls for every discipline of audio there is. It's a theatrical show. They're puppets. It's broadcast mixing because we're on broadcast. It's monitor mixing. I've got, I think it's 8 zones of PA out there, in-ear monitors. It's music mixing, it's dialogue mixing, all rolled into one and thrown at you at the same time. I am the only mixer on the show. There are no other guys. It's just me. I run a production console. You guys are probably familiar with it. It's an HDS. It's the most updated version of the SSL C100. The console itself has 256 inputs and outputs that are analog, and I've also got 256 AES inputs and outputs. Always build the show bigger than what the show is. So this is what the console is, not what the show is. I listen to Twin 6 monitors and good old NS10s. The show itself is a 128 input show, which, if you think about a puppet show, there's only 2 or 3 puppets, but there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. There's 16 wireless mics. We're currently on Shure UR4s. Mark and I were talking about going Axient, which is unfortunately going to have to happen this year. There's a lot of wireless stuff going on in the industry. You can talk to Henry Cohen or any of these guys. They'll tell you what's not only about to happen, but already has happened. I do have hardwire lofts on the show. I have 4 overhead effects mics, which are Sennheiser 416s. I am one of the few shows to still use a Fisher boom. And if you guys don't know what a Fisher boom is, it's not the fishpole that the E&G guys have. It is a large mechanical pneumatic 1.5 ton moving extendable boom. It's old school. It's how they used to do sitcoms. I think I'm the only show in New York that still has one. I have a bunch of Pro Tools systems on the show. There's a 16-channel playback system, a 16-channel master record system, and a 16-channel pre-record system. They all do different things, but each system is identical. I'll go into them in a minute. We do have live sound effects on the show. We have Dick Maitland, who's been with the show for 50 plus years, and he does sound effects live. Any kind of Foley, any kind of squeaky roller skate noise, any rustling in the leaves, Dick does that at the same time as the puppets are performing it. It's live Foley, so to speak. Anyone who's been in LA or the West Coast guys know what Foley is. Dick's doing it in real time. We have 2 voiceover booths on set that are used for pre-records. One of which is tied to the playback system. The other one's tied to the pre-record system. I do land them in the console. I'll go into them in a minute. There's a reason why I land them. I've got 8 channels of a QLab system, and I have gobs of tape returns. Sesame's a unique show because it's live to tape. What they'll do is they are meticulous about how the puppets look. If a fur is out of place, they will go back and do it over again. So they could call one of 8 tape machines at any time. So we have to have them all there and ready to go. The pre-record Pro Tools rig. What I'll do is I'll tell you about each of the systems and I'll tell you how they integrate in a little bit. The pre-record rig is manned by Paul Rudolph. He is the MD for Sesame Street. He coordinates and records all of the music that we hear on air. It is mixed live, but it's pre-recorded, so the band is actually not playing live, it's stems. And I get from Paul 16 stems of music and 16 stems of puppet vocals that are all recorded on his rig. His rig, it's a Neumann 87 for microphone. He's got a Grace mic pre, 16 channel HDX system, and all of our Pro Tools rigs are identical. The 3 that are sitting there are all 5.1s maxed out with memory, and there are 3 exactly the same systems. The reason that they're the same is that if one goes down, we can steal parts from the other one and kind of leapfrog around. So that is an engineering design. There's also a spare system that's mimics all the other ones that are the same. All the Pro Tools rigs have SSD drives. They're all maxed out with memory. We've got Yamaha DM1000 consoles for monitoring on each of the rigs. And I think Paul's on alphas for speakers. Paul is the only one of us in Sesame that uses plugins, and he uses some of the isotopes for cleaning up noise and some of the Antari stuff. But it's important to say that any of the puppeteers can sing what they're singing, and they are singing what you're hearing. They're just doing it on pre-recording. Once Paul finishes with all of his dialogue and all of his recording of the puppets, the sessions go over to Chris Prinzivalli. He's the Pro Tools editor and the playback guy. He's essentially the trigger man. He's playing back live what the puppets need. Now, Chris also has a vocal booth in his room, and he can do pre-records if needed. That system is it's a FET 47 and an AMEC 9098 mic pre. The reason that it's a 9098 is it's an extremely forgiving mic pre. If you've ever used the older stuff, there is more headroom to it than the newer stuff. So if a puppet wants to scream, which they love doing, we're not going to cap out the mic pre. There's also distress on there really clamped down, which does lace into it a bit. The Pro Tools rigs are all version 10 software. And the reason that we're on version 10 is because of this playback system right here. The Sesame playback system is not only an audio system, it's also a video system. And version 10 Pro Tools can play back video. The newer ones cannot. So if you've ever been to a large concert where there's screens going at the same time as the audio is going, we're essentially doing the same thing without chasing a video deck to it. Pro Tools is playing back that video file. Just toss it in the Chris's machine, line it up, hit play, and there's a Blackmagic video card in the back of that system. They play in synchronicity. The newer Pro Tools systems can do it, but there's a hardware box you have to buy, and it gets really kludgy. So that's why we're on version 10. Again, DM1000 for monitoring on him, all SSD drives and Focal monitors. For some crazy reason, we all just kind of adopted those Focals. It's not an endorsement. We just all kind of bought our speakers and happen to be the same brand. The third Pro Tools system that's at Sesame Street is the record system. It's the Master Record rig. The Master Record rig, it's a 32 channel system that records all day long. We come into the shop at 8 o'clock in the morning. By 8:15, I hit record, and that system does not stop until 7 o'clock at night until we're done with work. So because of that, we're maxed out with memory, we're maxed out with drives, and none of the systems are online. They are all rock solid, and like I said, this thing records 12 hours a day without hiccup. Like most of us know, for Pro Tools, the magic is getting the hardware, the software, and the computer all to talk together. Once you get that done, Pro Tools will just do what it does. Now, Sesame's got a very unique PA system that I designed about 10 years ago. When I first got to the show, they were using these large, overly big, essentially wedges. They weren't 12 AMs or F12s, but they were a large, obtrusive wedge that was just slide in, slide out, and it just doesn't work. So the new system is 18 of these little Apogee SSMs. They're older speakers. It's 2 4-inch drivers, and they're built like brick houses. They're all hidden within the set. I do have 2 AE5s as essentially side fills in the system. I have PSM 1000s for in-ears, and all of the speakers are in set pieces. And I've got a couple pictures here which I'll show you, because there's really no way to spot where the speakers are on camera, even though they are on camera. If you can take a look behind Big Bird in this shot, there's a staircase. There's 2 SSMs under the staircase. You'll never know they're there. Behind Alan's head, there's 2 on the steps down into the community center. Never know they're there. They're right in front of you, but some of them are painted to match the set, some of them are hidden under the leaves. And then for the puppets, there's 2 under the table. Now, we do have in-ear monitors at Sesame, but the puppeteers don't like wearing them. It does get in the way of their performance, and Sesame being the pinnacle of puppetry, you kind of got to respect that. Another shot of speakers right on set would be this. There's 2 staring at you right in the face, and no one will ever know they're there. If you can see Chris Knowings on the left-hand side, there's a green grate above him. There's 2 SSMs behind the grate. Never know they're there. Another camera shot of Sesame would be this one. Again, speakers staring at you in plain sight. You don't even know they're there. They're actually above the Hooper store sign, shooting right down. I do a zoned PA system at Sesame so that they can hear playbacks if they want to. They can hear each other's microphones, but it's essentially mixed minuses in that PA system. And it's all done from the production console. There's no separate monitor desk. There's no separate front of house desk. It's all coming from that SSL. Another picture of the PA is this one right here. You can see Carol outside of the Big Bird costume. There's 2 speakers right hidden in the bushes. They're completely audible, completely functional, but you'll never know they're there. I do, because I put them there and I kind of hid them a bit, but that's kind of the nature of the show. It's hidden magic. You'll never know the puppets have real people under them unless you actually see the real people. You'll never know the speaker there unless you act when there's a speaker there. Like I said, Sesame is the pinnacle of puppetry. I'm not into the craft of puppetry. I'm an audio guy, and that's kind of where I geek out. But you have to respect them with their craft as much as they respect ours for our craft. And for these guys to work 10, 15 years and to be at the top of their game, everything needs to be to their liking. They need to move around, they need to be functional, and they have to do what they do. So do I have choices where to put mics? Kind of, but I have to work with what they need to do. So let's go into how we mic a puppet. There's 3 different kinds of puppets at Sesame Street, and they are considered Muppets. A Muppet is a puppet that is designed and built by the Henson Workshop, by Jim Henson. And Jim has 3 different techniques of hand. They're all hand puppets, not marionettes, but he's got 3 different types of hand puppets. And the first one's a rotted puppet, in which the performer has their one hand in the head and uses 2 rods or boom arms to control the arms. In this case, I've got the most flexibility on microphones. I can put an armature, I can put a sweatband, or I can put a baseball hat. Here's one of our puppets. This is Leslie, who's performing Abby, the pink fairy. And you can see she's wearing a sweatband with, it's a VT500 as the microphone, right in the middle between her eyes. Examples of rotted puppets are Elmo. I hope you know who these characters are. Elmo, Abby, and Grover are all rotted puppets. And again, you can see the black wands, essentially, that they're using to control the character. And Leslie's wearing a VT500. This is Fran. Fran is controlling Prairie Dawn, and she's wearing a different kind of microphone. She's got a headband and an armature. This is a much older way of miking the puppets. This is the Jim Henson and Frank Oz way of wearing a mic. Fran comes from that generation, so that's where she's comfortable. Fran is also right-handed, so you'll see she's actually holding the puppet with the right hand, hence the armature's coming down on the left side of her face. If you do it the other way around, all you would get is elbow noises in that mic, and I'd blow a shot. Now, one thing I had to learn about puppetry when I came to Sesame is that each of these characters are very specifically the same performer. They will not deviate. So Prairie Dawn is always going to be Fran. Abby is always going to be Leslie. They don't move around. And just like audio guys, we can tell what a Chris Prinzivalli mix sounds like. We can tell what a Ron Reeves mix sounds like, or Chuck Einley. They put different things in their mixes that we just know. It's the same thing with puppetry. They can tell if a different puppeteer is under that character. So for that reason, each puppeteer has their own very specific microphone. And that microphone and that custom headgear is specifically designed and built for that performer. They don't move around. So this is Eric. I've got more pictures of Eric later. Eric performs Grover and Bert, and that is his microphone. It's also important to note that because some of the puppeteers have different characters, on the SSL console I do have presets for each of the characters. So for instance, Eric here, you see him with Bert. Bert's a very distinct sound. I've got a setting for him in the console that's saved as not Eric, but Bert. I've also got one for Grover, which is Eric's different character. Gains are a little bit different. Grover's a screamer, Bert is not. I have different compressor settings, I have different EQs on each of these. So I think I've got a library of about 50-something channel presets for each character. For what it's worth, Bert is also a rodded puppet. It's one hand up there and then two rods controlling the character. The second type of puppet at Sesame Street is a bagged puppet. And this one's a little bit harder to explain because there are no pictures of microphones for these guys. The actual costume comes around their head and their torso so that you really can't see the mic. But a bagged puppet requires two different puppeteers underneath it. The principal has their hand in the head and their hand in a characterized glove on the side, with a second puppeteer behind them, almost hugging them, performing the other hand. So there's two malleable hands and a head with all the facial structures. There is only one microphone, but a bagged puppet would be like a Telly Monster or an Oscar the Grouch or a Cookie. These are all two performer puppets. So here you can see Marty performing Telly. There's only one person there, and like I said, it's really difficult to see these guys, but you can see the right hand of Telly Monster just dangling there. It's essentially dead because there's only one performer. Because of this, here's a picture of Cookie, same way. Because of this, the miking techniques for these guys is a little bit different. You can't put the armatures. You can't always put a headband because the felt will drape over the mic and give a lot of unwanted noises. So for these guys, what we've been doing recently is a brimmed baseball cap with the microphone taped underneath it. That way the fabric can kind of drape off over and not affect the mic. There's essentially a protected basket in there that you'll never hear it at all. And again, even if the puppet turns its head, the mic is following them. That's a theater style of doing things. You'll never hear any tonal changes in any of these mics. That's a bagged puppet. The third type of puppet at Sesame Street is a body puppet. And a body puppet is one in which the performer is inside the costume. And you can tell the two puppets that are the body puppets right now, which are Big Bird and Snuffy. Those two are the most intricate puppets there are, and because of each of them, require a very unique way of miking them. On Carol, on the left picture here, you can see he wears a chest harness. That's where the costume itself clips in. It's like a camping backpack. As he puts the harness on, the yellow part of the costume comes around him, and he's got, in that chest harness, he's got a video screen so he can see out. He's got a script so he can read his script, and there's a microphone taped there. It's very easy for the puppeteer because they don't have to think about it. You pop the pack on, you turn it on, the mic is there, he puts the costume on, and it's done. They don't have to think about any of this. Whereas on the backed puppets or on the rotted puppets, you have to kind of work with the puppeteer to get the right angle. On these guys, throw and go. On the right, you'll see Maddie. Maddie's our new Big Bird. Carol did retire last year. There are two Big Birds. Matt's got one for him, and Carol's got one for him. They're different body structures. So it's a different harness, it's a different video screen, a different microphone, and it's a different character, a different puppet altogether. There's also a character called Barkley. I don't know if you know who that is. It's a large dog. That's also a body puppet. I've got a harness for Barkley as well. Probably the coolest mic technique, which again there's no pictures of it, is Snuffleupagus, the large woolly mammoth. It's a brown, looks like an elephant, but it's a large woolly mammoth. Snuffy is unique in the fact that the miking technique is part of the character's voice. Big Bird, Cookie Monster, Elmo, Grover, they are voiced by the puppeteer. I don't really do anything to them to alter the sound, but for Snuffy, the sound is the miking technique. And once I tell you the technique, I hope you laugh at it. It's actually a gas mask and a vacuum tube. And the trunk extends down, and there's a microphone all the way at the bottom of that vacuum tube, covered in foam, covered in windscreens. And while the puppeteer is inside that, he just strap on that gas mask, and there's the Snuffy sound. He does very little to actually manufacture that. It's all us with that. But there are three. They call them the Snuffle for silly reasons. There are three of them. One of them is the one we use in the studio. One of them is used in pre-records, so that if Snuffy has to sing a song, you still get that distinct nasally kind of sound. And the third one's for live presentations or live appearances. They're all wireless. Like I said, they're all Shure UR4s. And those are the three ways we do things at Sesame. Like I said, Sesame is unique in the fact that it pulls from just about every discipline there is. I said to you guys before, I do monitors for the award shows. I do front of house for, the WrestleMania stuff. I do all sorts of stuff, but Sesame is everything in one, and it's easily the trickiest show I do, hands down. We do music live. The music is pre-recorded, but the puppets are dancing live, and I mix it live. It's 8 monitor mixes of all those SSMs. It's in-ear monitors, it's side fills, it's all together. If I didn't have channel presets for the automation, the show wouldn't happen. Because of that, it's also difficult to find a fill in it. I mean, if I have to take a sick day or do another show, there's not a whole lot of guys that do this. In fact, the 3 guys that I have, you show them the show and they just sit there and go, "You're doing what?" It's just immensely complex. I've got a short video to play you that actually demonstrates all of these different techniques. Do you guys have any questions? I mean, like I said, fire away. Don't be shy. I'm pretty easygoing. Let's take a look. Go ahead. Correct. The puppeteers don't. I have the in-ears. There's two different mixes, and they are essentially, the first mix is a dialogue-only mix, so they can hear just all the dialogue. The second one's a full program mix with music and sound effects and everything else in it. The puppeteers don't like wearing them because it's another body pack on them, so if they're lying on the floor, it could get crushed. They got to put the second battery pack. They also have to wear those in-ears, and it cuts you off in the real world. They don't like doing that. It gets in the way of the performance, and they prefer not to do it. So my answer was these little speakers that are essentially super directional. So if I turn the speaker around and aim it at one puppet, the other puppet's not going to hear it. And I'm also not going to hear it in their microphones, which is a big deal to me. So they're currently Apogees, which I know they're old and archaic, but they work. There are new cool things out there now. I know Nexo's got some really cool and sleek little stuff. We haven't pulled the trigger on that yet because the Apogees work. And when it comes down to it, Sesame's still a non-profit show. So do we have deep pockets to get all this new cool stuff? I mean, if we need it, we'll get it, but I don't want them to spend any money they don't have to. We're all there for the kids and our craft, so we'll use Apogees, but we do lose a lot of microphones. The puppeteers lying on their backs all the time, crawling around the ground. They do pull cables all the time. I lose a VT500, I have to replace it, or parent end. The maintenance guys love us because they're always soldering those little, very delicate connectors. I do use, for the human characters, real quick, I'll show you this one picture again. For the human characters on Sesame, how do I get back to this? It's somewhere. For the human characters, I use either a Countryman B6, which is a super, super small lavalier microphone. It'll be taped under their outfit or sometimes poke out of a buttonhole. I also have VT500s mainly, and we'll put them in an undercover. It's a riot code thing we can put underneath. Most of the puppets are VT500s. There are two of them that are the old Countryman E6s. Telly Monsters on an E6 and Grover's on an E6 because they just have, plainly their voices are just too powerful. They will blow out a VT500. The overhead Fisher boom is a Sennheiser 816, a super long shotgun. The reason that it's an 816 is just simple rejection. If I need to pull out one person in the crowd, I can, and not the screaming puppet next to him. That mic is kind of unwieldy for any of the boom guys. They don't like using that mic, but we need it. We need that super pristine pattern, or super precise pattern at Sesame. It's just, there's no other way to do it. If we used a 416 or anything else, it'd just be too wide, we'd pick up too much ambience, and I'd blow the shot. There are ways of getting that ambience out, but why have the post guys do any cedering or any isotoping if you don't have to? If I can get them a pristine dialogue mix, they'll use that. And for the most part, they will. I mean, the procedure at our show is that all the music is pre-recorded, sent to the dialogue MD, Paul, will record the vocals, they'll get sent to Chris to play back, I'll mix it, create a dialogue stem and music stem, and send it to post. And 90% of the time, they're not remixing what I do, they're just going to add their sound effects, they're going to add a couple of whiz bangs, and go for a final polish, and that goes off to the broadcast. It's not, they're not churning it around as much as they need to be. They could, but again, why make them do something they don't need to do? The PA system didn't help out for that. With the older, larger speakers that just slapped all over the place and blew into microphones, it wasn't worth it. So to streamline things and get little stuff really helps out. Plus the fact that all the speakers are hidden. If you don't have to drag a wedge in front of somebody or no cables on the ground, it's all hidden. The set guys love you that much more. I did have to work with the set designers and the set painters to make sure that they were cool with it, make sure the lighting guys, there's no shadows, and a couple of the speakers they did paint. So some of them in the bushes are painted green and brown, The ones under the stairs are actually a matte brown, so that you can't. There's no reflections off them. You can't see them. There is a unique. Now that I'm thinking about it, there is a unique situation in Oscar the Grouch's trash can, in which, first of all, it's a real metal trash can. It's not a set piece. So the first thing in that trash can is you can't use RF because you're completely shielded in that can. So there is a hardwire microphone in there. So when Eric jumps on, he clips it on, and there's no way RF would get through a metal trash can. So there's that. There's also very little audibility in that trash can. So there's a speaker under there for the puppeteer. And what's in that speaker is all of the other puppets on that set. So if you've got a couple guys in front of the 1, 2, 3 steps or outside, I feed those microphones into the speaker for Eric so he can hear what's going on. And vice versa. I'll put Oscar's mic in the speaker in the steps so everyone else can hear it. It's essentially mixed minus, but again, it's his own PA, so we can do that. And with those little SSMs, you'll never hear that mic or the speaker or any of the mics. It's pretty clean. And that's something new that we've been doing. Again, we could have done it with the IFBs and the in-ear monitors, but they don't like them. The in-ears were used once for a very unique task in that, like I said, the Sesame characters are the same puppeteer every single time. They don't deviate from that. So when a puppeteer retires, like Frank Oz or Jerry Nelson, or God forbid they pass away like Jim, the characters get passed on to an understudy. But a lot of times the voices need to be the same. So for instance, there are 3 different Elmo voices that are very distinctly different. And if you're trained, you can hear the difference. If a puppeteer retires, they'll try to still use that same voice for a little bit so that the transition is smoother. For instance, Count Von Count for a long time was Jerry Nelson. It's now, I think Matt's doing it now. But for about 3 years there, what we would do is on set, Matt would be under the character actually performing it, but Jerry would be off stage voicing it. For that very specific reason, the IFBs, the in-ear monitors, came in very, very handy because I could put, Matt would be wearing a microphone but would not be going to program. I could put a pre-fade of Matt's mic in Jerry's ears and they can talk back and forth to each other, essentially like an intercom, like a clearcom or like a regal, only via mics and in-ears. That's what that one mix enabled us to do. That's not something anyone would use in-ear monitors for, but on Sesame, anything goes. Let me get to this video clip because this is kind of a fun thing, and I hope you guys can pick out the different elements to this. I'm strolling through, forgive me, it's the last slide on the whole bunch here. But the one, this episode, it's only about a 3-minute video clip. It has a very identifiable puppet who is doing dialogue lines live. It's also got a human character who's doing dialogue lines live. Now the puppeteer in this is Kevin, who's wearing an elastic headband with a VT500 on his head. He is under a piece of furniture performing the puppet and voicing it live. The human character, you'll recognize as well, is wearing a VT500 in an undercover, and there's a Fisher Boom with an 816 right over his head. He's doing live dialogue lines. You'll see on the video it'll switch to music, and the Fisher Boom will go off, the lavalier will go off, and you'll hear music. However, the puppeteer decided to ad-lib lines live on the set during music. So this is one of the things that kind of the whole shebang comes in, and you'll see, if I did my job right, the U87 in the recording studio and the VT500 should kind of match, but let's have some fun, and we'll take a look at the video here.
Oh boy, Elmo's having a really hard time falling asleep. Oh boy.
Sounds like you need a celebrity lullaby.
A what?
A celebrity lullaby. That's when an unbelievably famous person comes over and sings to you.
Oh boy, Elmo loves a celebrity lullaby.
Excellent.
What famous person is going to sing to Elmo?
What do you mean, what famous person's going to sing to you?
What, is it Brad Pitt? Elmo loves Brad Pitt.
No, it's not Brad Pitt. It's Ricky Gervais.
Oh, Mr. Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, that's me.
Is Mr. Ricky Gervais a celebrity?
What do you mean? Well, of course I am. Would celebrity lullabies hire me if I wasn't a celebrity?
Well, Elmo's not sure.
Well, I am sure. The answer's no, they wouldn't.
Well, it doesn't matter. Elmo doesn't care if Mr. Ricky Gervais is a celebrity or not. Elmo just loves lullabies.
Good. But know that I am a celebrity.
Well, Elmo believes Mr. Ricky.
Good. Lay your fuzzy little head down.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to sing you a really sweet song all about the letter N.
Oh, the letter N?
The letter N. It's a great letter to fall asleep to.
Oh, cool.
The letter N is what you need when you take a nap.
Yeah.
Need to put your nightshirt on or put on your nightcap. N begins nummies, which are really nice to eat at night before you nuzzle down in between the sheets. N goes N goes when you want to rest your body, lay your noggin down.
That's better.
Put on your pajamas, put on your nightgown. Tell your niece and nephew and the neighbors down your street. The letter N is really helpful when you need to sleep. N goes
It's too loud.
night-night.
That didn't help Elmo fall asleep at all.
Does Elmo want a celebrity cup of warm milk?
Mr. Ricky's done enough.
Okay.
Did you guys catch the transitions there? Hopefully they're subtle enough, but Kevin Clash is the puppeteer under Elmo for that one. And we had to do it a couple times because when he moves around in the bed, the mic bumped a couple times. But every piece of dialogue by Elmo is live. It's not pre-recorded, it's not faked, it's not posted, it's not overdubbed. And he's doing that live. It was pretty tricky to get the music loud enough on the set for both of them to hear it. There were speakers under the bed, there were speakers at Ricky's feet so that he could hear it. But to get essentially an omnidirectional lavalier and an overhead Fisher boom to not pick up the music was pretty tricky. Ricky was not playing the guitar live. He did pre-record that guitar, so he's just miming to it. All of his ad-libs were all live. Ricky was singing that is his voice. We just mixed it in, and like I said, hopefully that U87 sounded like a VT500. We matched it nicely, and the transitions were well. I chuckle at that one all the time. It's one of my favorite segments. But one of the more complicated things, we do that every single day. I never knew really how complicated puppetry was. I thought Sesame Street, Puppets, hand show, can't be more than 16 inputs, but not a chance. It's hands down the most difficult show I do all year long. If you guys got any questions, man, shoot them off, man. Don't be shy. It's kind of a casual, fun thing, you know?
For matching those inputs, would you start with the lavalier and try to morph the U87 to sound like that,
Correct.
or would you split the difference?
No, correct. I try to. Each of the puppet characters have their own setting in the console. It's a channel preset I'll drop in on the C100. Just boom, there's Grover. Boom, there's Elmo. So I'll start with that. The guy that records the music is Paul Rudolph. He's our MD. He kind of knows what I'm going for, and he kind of knows his mic techniques in the studio, what to do. Believe it or not, most of what I do is just low-pass filtering. I'll hack it up to about $1.60 It's not what I would do in a studio setting, but once you lop off that Neumann mid bass and bottom end, you can kind of get pretty close. But you're correct. I use the lav as the control and try to morph the studio mic to it. Yeah. Anybody else?
Sound reinforcement.
Audio mixing like a Dugan, like an
Yeah,
auto ducker?
exactly.
Absolutely not. The reason I can't use Dugans have a very, very specific purpose, and we were just talking about this earlier today. It's one of the most brilliant pieces of machinery out there right now. And what it does is absolutely amazing, but it's got a very specific purpose. It's got a purpose for a panel. Think of it more as an auto ducker than an auto mixer. I know it's doing a lot more than just that, but it's an intelligent gate. It's an intelligent ducker. So if you've got a corporate panel or a presentation panel where you've got 8 or 16 mics open, the Dugan will duck it out. What I'm doing in the studio, it's actually not helpful to me to do that because I need to blend it and I need to have control over what it's doing. So the only thing that really prohibits me from using a Dugan is the overhead Fisher boom, which is an ambient microphone. And if that Dugan clamped down on the overhead, it would be instantly apparent and just very, very audible what it's doing. So that's part of why I use the 816 to get the really narrow pattern, and I do blend it in and out. So for the clip we saw, the 816 is open for Ricky's lines, but when I go to Kevin's lines, it's ducked. Sesame's a scripted show, so I can follow along with that and essentially mix and sculpt on the fly. If it were not a scripted show, it'd be more difficult, but unfortunately in this situation, a Dugan would not help me. But yeah, no, Dugans are fantastic. I love them. Yeah. So I said.
Are there rehearsals or run-throughs at all, or is it literally
Oh, they
just the first
rehearsed it.
time?
Yeah, rehearsals. They rehearse it to death. The first thing that happens in the morning is they'll do a read-through. They'll get all the puppeteers and performers together, and they'll read through the script for the first time all together. We're giving the scripts weeks and weeks ahead of time, so I kind of know what's coming up. But the first read-through with all the performers collectively there is on the first day. So the day is very, very structured. In fact, that the first scene might only take 3 or 4 puppeteers, not all of them. So even though at the read-through they're all there, I won't mic them all up. We'll hang the Fisher over them, and I'll kind of see what they're going for. Once we do that, and I get an idea of what's in their heads, then I can start micing people up. And okay, this guy's going to go there, and I have. If you saw a script of mine, it's just notes after notes after notes, and they'll rehearse it. They'll rehearse it for them though, not for audio. I mean, in the world of TV, nobody we're low man on the totem pole. So if I have a problem on my setup, they don't tolerate that. I mean, most of us come from a recording studio background, which, yeah, we have time to move mics around. We have time to create our soundscape. We have time to do this. On TV, it's not like that. It's got to be done the right way the first time, or they're going to find somebody else. So that's why the set is built. My setup is built overly large, so I can accommodate any crazy ideas they have. And just when you think they've, capacitated all ideas, comes another one. They asked me once. I didn't think this was possible. They asked me once to play music backwards, and I went, "What? I'm trying to think logically. Why would you? Why?" Well, it's a puppetry thing, and they explained it to me in their creative right brain mind. I had no idea what they're talking about. But sure, okay. Pro Tools, Audio Suite, Revert. Here you go play. And it was funny because when we did that, they didn't know that was possible. They thought we had to actually pull the reels off the tape, switch them, roll them around. So they said, "All right, guys, 30-minute coffee break while they do a reversal." And it's like, no, we're done, guys. Here's reverse. No, just take as much time as you want. No worries. No, guys, we're done. Here you go. Click. Pro Tools plays backwards, and they were astounded. Before we had Pro Tools on that playback system, we had some G88s and some other stuff. And when I came in, it was the first thing I did is let's put Pro Tools everywhere. That's what everybody uses. Yeah, they rehearse it to death. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for coming out.